"There it hurts," she moaned. The rancher froze. His hands trembled midair, the sound of her pain cutting through the soft hum of the night wind that swept across the open fields. In that single heartbeat, everything inside him stopped, the horses, the cicadas, even the air. Then he did the unthinkable. It all started on a lonely stretch of land miles from the nearest town, where the dust never seemed to settle and the sunsets always looked too beautiful for the kind of sorrow they hid. Luke Harland had lived on that ranch all his life. He was 36, quiet, broad-shouldered, a man who carried silence like a second skin. People called him the Stone Rancher, because no one ever saw him smile, not since that night 5 years ago when he lost his wife, Clara, in a flash flood that tore through their land. The storm had taken everything: his laughter, his faith, his reason to look anyone in the eye. He worked from dawn till dark, talking only to the animals and the wind. The barn had become his world, and grief his only companion. Until the day a stranger showed up on the dirt road, limping, covered in dust, with fear in her eyes. Her name was Emily. 28, thin but strong, the kind of woman who'd clearly seen too much and trusted too little. Her truck had broken down on the road, miles from help. Luke almost didn't stop when he saw her. He didn't stop for anyone anymore. But something in her voice, soft, shaky, desperate, cracked the wall he'd built around his heart. "I just need water," she'd said, clutching her side, "and maybe a place to rest for a while." He didn't answer right away. He just stared, the brim of his hat shadowing his eyes, the silence between them stretching like the horizon itself. Then he nodded once and motioned toward the porch. That was how it began. That evening, as the sun bled gold and red across the hills, Emily sat on the steps of the old ranch house, watching him fix a fence in silence. She tried to talk, asking questions, trying to fill the emptiness around him. But Luke only spoke when necessary. "You can sleep in the guest room. Truck's old. I'll check it tomorrow." That was all he said. Days passed. Emily helped around the ranch despite her injury. She cooked, fed the horses, swept the porch. And little by little, something began to change. The sound of her humming in the kitchen, the way she laughed when the dog Ranger chased his tail. It was like sunlight creeping through cracks in a broken window. Luke noticed, but he didn't know what to do with the warmth that stirred inside him. Then one night the storm returned, the kind of storm that sounded like the past, thunder growling like grief, rain hammering like regret. Emily was in the barn, helping with a colt that had gotten spooked by the lightning. Luke ran in when he heard her scream. The horse had kicked, catching her across the ribs. "There it hurts," she moaned, clutching her side, tears streaking through the dirt on her face. Luke froze. The sound of her pain was too close, too real, just like Clara's last breath years ago. His heart pounded, his breath hitched, and for a terrifying moment, he couldn't move. Then something broke inside him. The fear, the guilt, the wall. He dropped to his knees beside her, hands shaking as he tore a strip from his shirt and pressed it to her wound. "You'll be all right," he whispered, voice cracking. "Stay with me, Emily. Please." It was the first time in years he'd begged anyone for anything. He carried her into the house, drenched, his heart hammering louder than the rain. He wrapped her in a blanket, made a fire, and stayed beside her all night, refusing to let go. She drifted in and out of consciousness, whispering things about the life she'd run from, a cruel fiancé, debts, fear. Luke listened, his jaw tight, rage simmering beneath his calm. He realized then that this woman wasn't just lost, she was running from pain deeper than his own. When dawn came, she woke to find him asleep beside the chair, head resting on folded arms, exhausted. She looked at him, this man of silence who had carried her through the storm, and something in her heart softened. Days turned into weeks. Emily healed, and the ranch began to feel less like a prison of ghosts and more like a home again. Luke started talking more, small things at first, about the land, the weather, then stories of Clara. Emily listened, never judging, never prying. She only said one thing that stayed with him: "You didn't fail her, Luke. You just never forgave yourself for surviving." That night, for the first time in years, Luke stood under the stars and let himself cry. The tears fell silently like rain over the dry earth, washing away years of sorrow. Emily found him there, her hand finding his. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," he said quietly. "You saved me, but peace doesn't last forever." One evening, a black truck rolled down the dusty road. The same man Emily had been running from stepped out, face twisted with fury. Luke stepped between them, the quiet rancher now a wall of steel. The man raised his voice, threatened, even reached for her arm. But Luke didn't hesitate. He did the unthinkable. He hit him. Hard, not out of anger, but out of something pure, protection, love. The man stumbled, shocked, then left, cursing into the wind. When the dust settled, Emily fell into Luke's arms, shaking. "You didn't have to." "Yes," he interrupted softly. "I did." After that day, things changed. The fear that had once lived in her eyes began to fade. Luke started smiling again, just a little. They rebuilt the fence together, side by side, like rebuilding pieces of two broken lives into something whole. Months later, as the sun dipped low and the wind whispered through the fields, Emily looked at him and said, "Luke, do you ever think some people were meant to find each other, just to heal?" He looked out across the golden land, the same land that had once taken everything from him, and nodded. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think that's exactly why we're here." The ranch never stopped being a place of pain, but it became something else too. A place of second chances. And as Ranger barked in the distance and the sky turned to fire, Luke pulled her close. The wind carried the faint echo of her words. "There it hurts." But now it was only the memory of a wound that had finally healed. Because sometimes, what hurts the most is what saves you in the end.